Hi creators, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to a tutorial on how to model Catra from the cartoon series She-Ra, which you guys can watch in Netflix. But if you're new to this channel, I post 3D tutorials on a weekly basis. The software I use include Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, and so much more. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out your creativity, open up that software, and let's go ahead and get started on modeling Catra, going from 2D to 3D. So let's get started.
All right, so what I did was bring in an image plane of this character, Catra from She-Ra, which, by the way, if you guys haven't watched it, you should. I cry every episode at the end. The last season, I'm like, just sobbing in a good way. Then what I do is, this is the front view, so make sure you're looking at the front view, and I am splitting. You guys see that there's this this is where the origin is. I'm making sure that the character is basically in the middle, just makes things easier for me. I'm going to duplicate this and rotate this 90 degrees. And this is going to be my side view. So as you can see, my side view is going to be right here. And I'm going to just nudge her forward so that she's a little bit beyond here. Now, another thing you guys may want to do is make sure that her feet is touching the ground. I'm not that picky about that stuff, but some people are actually pretty picky. And if the artist did a good job, everything should align. So that means that the top of her head matches the top, her chin matches her chin, and stuff like that. If not, again, we're going to have to make adjustments and stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to grab these two, and actually I'm going to grab this one. This is going to be the front. So this is my front layer. And this is going to be my side layer. And the reason why I'm separating them is because I need to hide them randomly. And then I'm going to lock them. Okay, cool. So usually the first thing I do is start creating the leg. Then I create the arm, and then I create the body. So the beginning, I'm going to start off, just like anything else, I'm going to start off with a cylinder, because the cylinder is probably the best shape for the leg. And I am going to reduce my polygon count to around 12, because I'm going to increase it as I go on. And then I'm going to change my cap to 0. So I'm going to start off at the front, and she's in what's called an A pose, which is great. And then what I can do is I'm going to, well, usually what I do with characters is that I actually start developing them with one large cylinder, but then I also give myself a couple of heights. So what I'm doing is giving myself some subdivision heights. I'm also going to go in here and choose X-ray so I can see through it, because I'm going to need it. So what I'm going to do is start off with this side, and then I'm going to move on to the other side. So I'm going to start off with the front, and then I'm going to go to the side. But to make my life easier, just going to go ahead and move this here too. So this is my side view and the front view. Those are my main focuses. So like I mentioned before, it's always about scaling, extruding and scaling. In this case, I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is actually going to scale my edges to match the silhouette of my character, and my edges are already there. So for example, I'm going to grab this edge, or you can grab vertices, and I'm going to uniformly, actually, I'm going to scale on one direction. So this is the difference between a chess piece that is, rounded. The leg is not, it's close, but it still has shape. So what I'm doing is going to use the silhouette to get the front, and then I'm going to get the side. So don't scale uniformly. Grab it from the side, and what I'm going to be doing is moving it and scaling it so from one direction. Then I'm going to fix it on the other side. So I'm double clicking here. I'm going to scale it and then just move it. The foot's always a challenge. So, and actually I'm going to work with vertices. It's just a little easier to work with. So again, I'm just going to scale it on one direction and then work from there. So I'm grabbing these edges, or I'm sorry, vertices, and just going to scaling it to fit the silhouette by moving it and scaling it. And I'm just going to go down the row like so. And don't worry too much about like, hey, this doesn't look very smooth. I'm going to be adding more edges as I go on, but right now I'm just trying to get the basic shape. And this is basically going to be like my pelvis, but actually, let me just bring this down here because I'm going to need this for my torso. All right, so if I look over here, it looks good in the side, but doesn't look, the front, but doesn't look so hot on the side. So what I'm going to do is go to the side. So same thing, I'm going to go to shading, X-ray. And just like I did before, I am going to go through and just kind of scale this to fit. Now, again, I'm not grabbing the center. I'm not scaling from the center. I'm actually scaling it on the side because I want to make sure the silhouette looks good on the side. So I'm grabbing this, just kind of scaling it. So again, I'm just using the silhouette as a way to shape the leg. And I know this is I'm just gonna move all these forward. And then again, I'm gonna scale it. So now when I take a look at this leg and I press the number 3, it actually starts looking like a leg instead of a cylinder. Okay, things about geometry and when you're going to rig. If it's going to bend, it needs at least three edge loops for it to flex. So think of it like a straw. When you have a straw and you bend it, it kind of breaks, right? But have you seen those straws that has those little edges at the top and you get to whoop and it curves really pretty? That's like the idea of this, is that we want to make sure that these edges, that when the character, I'm assuming this is a character, we're going to rig it and it's going to be animated, it needs proper topology. So that means that it needs at least 3 rings around anywhere that bends, and that includes the knee. So I'm going to go in and shift right click and insert an edge at the bottom and at the top of her knee. And anytime you do that, you need to make sure that it fits the environment. So if you add an edge, make sure that it fits, right? So if there's anything else that you may feel like it needs more edges, probably the ankle and stuff like that's going to be one of them. But the knee has the 3 edges. And now I'm just kind of looking at this to make sure it looks okay. So I'm just kind of making sure that the silhouette looks good. So anytime you add a new edge, you have to make sure that you look at it on both views. So for example, right here, you can see that it's straight line, but there's actually a flex here. So I'm going to go ahead and add an edge. So insert edge right here. And I'm going to scale. And again, I scale it on one direction. I want to make sure it looks good on one direction. So I'm going to go in and shift right click, insert edge loop here. So again, I want to make sure that one looks good. I just want to make sure it's curved. There you go. That part looks good. And then comes the foot. But let me just double check to make sure everything looks good on this side, because I just added some geometry. So you can see that this area could use a little bit of scaling, make it a little bit more rounded. And I'm just kind of looking through to make sure everything is still following. So the foot, well, as you can see by the drawing, it's actually flushed here, but when we go over here, it almost looks like she's on her tippy toes. And that's always a real problem when it comes to artists, because they don't usually align. It's really annoying. What we need to do is basically just kind of grab these vertices and just kind of nudge them so that they fit a little bit the scene. And what I'm trying to do is just get a little bit of that nice curve that we get on the foot. And to get the toes, what we can do is, and you guys are going to see me jumping, all over the places, because I want to make sure I grab it correctly. We want to make sure that we grab the front of the foot. And we're going to extrude, Control E, press W, lift, and then scale. And if you guys know anything about feet, they're actually pretty straight, and then they kind of, then we have the toes. So I'm going to go in and extrude again, bring it in, and I'm actually going to skip this flat because I don't need it to be so curved. And I'm also going to scale it in a little bit this direction because I know it eventually starts to do that. Extrude again. bring this in, scale, bring this down, and then finally extrude again, and then bring this out. All right, so we are working on, now we have to start kind of making it look more like feet. So she has a lot of toes and things like that. 1, 2, 3, she's got 5. But let's make sure that the shape of this is correct before we move forward. So we're trying to get the base shape first. So we know that feet are kind of curved. And if you need to look at anatomy and stuff like that, I recommend that you do. But basically what I'm trying to do is make this look a little bit more curved so that it will look more human. I'm also going to kind of flatten this out a little bit. And the way they drew her, it's almost like it's kind of driving me crazy. She's kind of sideways, which is not great for 3D modeling because her foot should be basically, she should be standing, not like curved like that. Anyway, I'm going to add another edge here. So shift right click, insert edge here so that I can go in and double click on this and just kind of round her foot out a little bit more. And if we know anything about feet, let me grab these guys. I'm going to bring this here, and then the foot actually caves in over here. So again, like if you guys take anatomy and all that stuff, but it's really important that you look at reference when you guys are creating feet and stuff so that it looks, more organic. And then we're going to look up here, and toes are more, oops, I did not mean to grab that one. Wait, it's more like this, right? So our pinkies are over here and our toes are over there and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the rest of the body, but if I press the number 3, it does look like a foot. It doesn't have the toes and everything. And there's definitely this little end gone over here. So there's a lot of things that I need to still tweak, but hopefully you guys are getting the idea of what what it should look like. And it still feels like it's because it's not flushed flat. And let me just scale these flat. Must have grabbed something. Yep, that's why you don't do that. I'm trying to average it out. There we go. So you can see that when I'm trying to scale, what I'm trying to do is scale it flat, but it's looking at the object instead of world space. So what I could do is double click on the scale tool here, and instead of object, I can change this to world. So now I'm going to get world space, and now I can crush it and then move him down a little bit. So now the foot's actually flushed on the ground. There we go. And it's going to be a little bit easier for me to model this because it's now flushed on the ground instead of being like crooked and stuff like that. So that just kind of helps me a little bit more with it feeling like it's planted on the ground. And of course, we can add more details like, ankles and stuff like that. But I'm going to move on because the next part's going to be the arm. So I'm kind of blazing through this. I'm going to delete this top face here. Pink. So now we're going to do the arm, and you can see that she has an arm here. And the reason why is because they want to make sure that you match her body here because the arm will get in the way. So that's okay. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start off with a cylinder. Change the cap to 0. Again, I'm going to change this to 12 because I can work with low poly and then increase it. And just like I did before, this is my side view. So I'm going to grab this and increase the scale. I'm also going to give myself a couple of heights. Whoops, something happened there. Well, let me give myself height without ruining my cylinder. There you go. And again, this is just going to be, right now I'm just kind of getting the basic shape. I can add more edges as I go along, but this would give me the basic shape of the arm. And let me make sure in the front view, it's also the same view. So a lot of the times you want it to be in what's called a T pose, but because this character is more like in an A pose, we're just gonna have to deal with it. So she's like that. And then we can start modeling again. So we're gonna grab vertices and just kind of shaping it. Again, grab from one view. You don't wanna grab it from, you don't wanna scale it uniformly because then that's gonna cause issues. Because we want to shape it the way it looks like in one view and then shape it the other view. And I'm going to lift this because this is going to be her wrist. And I'm going to start with this one. Do this way. And then I'm going to go to the front view and do the same. So again, now you notice that I'm in world space. So I'm going to double click on this and choose object space. So it'll be easier for me to scale. So again, I'm grabbing it from one side. All right, so if we take a look at our model, it looks like this so far. So we now need to add more geometry, especially around the elbow and things like that. So let's go ahead and insert some edges. And I'm also going to add some edges for my elbow so that it can flex. So then once I add those edges, double check this one, and you just want to make sure that everything fits as well. So since I added some mesh, I want to make sure that this is looking good on all angles. So if I press the number 3, it looks something like this. So she's very stylized, as you can see. That's why it looks to me, it looks a little weird. That's because she's so stylized. But you know, once you texture her and stuff like that, she's gonna look better. Because she's got she's got sharp geometry. Or the way they drew her. All right, so it looks weird, but that's kind of like the idea. All right, this is gonna be hard because I'm used to modeling in 90 degrees. So I'm gonna see if I can change this. I'm used to 90 degrees. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of model this direction for now, and then I'm gonna rotate her arm back. So the next part is her wrists. So the wrists and the hands, I mean, I'm going to show you like a very simple way of modeling this, but usually wrists are a little bit flatter. And what I can do is extrude. I can start creating her hands. And the way the hands work is, let's see, where is her side? Actually, it might be easier to work downwards. So let me rotate this direction. Yep, it'll be easier for me to work on this version here. So the trick, like the hands are pretty interesting because we have these, I mean, hands are crazy because we have this thumb. You know, if without the thumb, it'd be pretty straightforward. You just extrude and then you have fingers, right? But the thumb is the one that kind of throws everything off. So usually what happens is that what we do is just kind of, or what we do is kind of extend this down here, which is the wrist, and kind of extend it in this direction. And then we extrude the thumb using these faces, and then we get the rest of the hand. So I'm just gonna kind of start just modeling all of these things, and then I'll, do the rest. So then I'm gonna extrude this again and bring this down because this is around where the knuckles are. And you'll notice that we really need is to have we need 4 fingers. So what I need is to insert, I need to make some cuts. So the first cut that's going to go across here is going to be the pinky. Then comes the other fingers. And then we have this one. And unfortunately, it does leave us with an N-gon. But what we can do is actually go across here, and that will give us a quad as well. And we're going to need that mesh to be able to extrude our fingers. So for example, the first one I'm going to grab is the pinky. And the pinky is here. So I'm going to extrude individually, and just right now, I'm just going to get like the basic shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale here. Now you can see that my other fingers, these fingers are kind of close. So the way they've modeled it. But before I get going, well, actually, let me undo this, because what I should do is give myself a little bit of room because there's space between our fingers. So what I'm going to do is just kind of grab this one, extrude a little bit, scale it in just a little bit, just a little bit, and maybe bring it out a little. So I have a little bit of a nook, and then I can extrude again and move it down. And another purpose for this is because I need to grab this so I can make it look more rounded, right? So we want to make sure our geometry is looking actually rounded. And also our pinkies don't crush to the side. We actually are more like this. They're more flat. I'll fix the rest later, but I'm just trying to get the basic fingers ready to go. So same thing with this one. What I can do is I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to just bring it down a little bit, scale it in a little bit, and I'm actually going to try to shape it. Now we do have this fancy little tool right here that will try to make it into a circle, but just be careful because it will kind of break the geometry a little bit. So just kind of, I don't need it to be that circular. So then I'm going to go in and grab these guys and just kind of scale it up a little bit. And then extrude, Control E, and then bring it down. So again, I'll fix the geometry later. I'm just right now trying to get the fingers to come out. So again, grab this fingers, extrude a little bit. You can click on the circle, scale it in a little. It doesn't have to be this dramatic. So I'm going to go in and scale that a little bit. Extrude, bring it down. And then you can round it out. All right. So hopefully you guys are getting the idea of how to create just like really simple fingers. Again, I haven't done much of the detailing and stuff like that, but you can see that, my pinky is humongous, so I need to fix that. But in general, we're getting fingers. And might as well get the correct scale here. So just kind of look at your own fingers. Your middle finger is the longest. This one is about the same size, but just slightly less. Our pinky is actually very small. So next comes this finger. So again, you're going to grab these faces, extrude a little bit. And I click on the circle, pink. Make some changes because it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. Grab these faces, again, extrude. And I can go ahead and go here. So some adjustments need to be made as always, because modeling characters is not easy, but you can go in and kind of just make the adjustments. I do want a little bit of separation in the fingers because that's going to help me when I rig my character. If the mesh is too close, it's going to cause some issues when it comes to rigging. And then my pinky is humongous, so I'm going to go in And even though it is matching the reference picture anatomy wise, this doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go in and just make this pinky a little bit smaller. Our fingers are also bigger and they scale downward. So I'm going to grab these guys and just kind of scale them this direction. So I remember somebody told me like fingers are like spatulas, and I'm like, hey, you're right. Like, or your hand's like a spatula. So just kind of make sure that it looks a little bit like that. So okay, very simple. All right, so like we mentioned before, we need edges for it to flex because our fingers actually flex a lot. So we have basically 2 knuckles before we get to the top over here. So that means that we basically have to figure out where those knuckles are. And in her drawing, it kind of starts over here and then she's got another pair. So therefore, I'm just going to go in and insert some edges. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'm kind of going through this pretty quickly. There's still a lot of details I need to kind of add and stuff like that because this looks pretty, simple, but hopefully you guys will get the idea of what you need to do. So I'm just gonna kind of nudge this up a little bit. Okay, the thumb. So the thumb is right here. So I'm gonna grab these faces, and you want to make sure that you grab the whole side of the hand, not just one side. You need the thumb's actually a pretty extensive part. So we need to extrude. And this one actually I'm going to rotate and scale. Extrude again. And again, I'm going to rotate and scale. Control E again. And then Control E one more time for the end. Now our thumb is actually pretty thick, so I need to grab these guys and just kind of make sure that it's thick enough so it looks like an actual thumb. And I can also bring these edges down so I can round it out a little bit. All right, so that's kind of like the basic hand. It looks kind of cartoony. It's because it doesn't have the details. So for example, it's missing, like a palm. So we want to make sure that we insert some edges. So I'm going to insert an edge over here, which will give me more of a thumb, which is good because I need more detail on the thumb. And I can grab these edges and bring them out. These edges need to come out as well. So we get a little bit of a cupped hand. And I need to round the thumb out a little bit because I have this new mesh. So make sure that you round things out a little bit. So now we have basically a hand. Now the wrist does flex, so make sure you insert your edges at the wrist. So don't forget to add those. And you can use this to kind of help shape this a little bit more. So for example, I can kind of lift this up a little bit. and making sure that everything's looking a little bit rounded. Anyway, I can spend more, well, obviously I would spend more time on this, but that should give me a little bit of a hand. So I am going to take this and delete it. And now we have an arm and a leg. Cool. So again, don't forget to delete the history, all that stuff on both of them, both the leg and this. And you know what? I haven't saved in a while, so let me save. Okay, so again, what I'm doing is just kind of showing you guys the basics here. And then when the character is basically complete, then I start adding more details, such as the claws and, you know, things like that. So, and the toes and everything. But this, hopefully this will give you an idea of how to create your characters.
All right, so that covers the leg and the arm. The next video tutorial is going to be the torso. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment below. If you like this video and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. And if you feel that somebody could also use a little tutorial on how to create characters, then please share this video with your friends and other 3D artists. That would be amazing. Take a look at academicphoenixplus.com where you can find free 3D models, ebook, and other resources just for you. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Thank you again for watching. Keep creating, and in the next video tutorial, we will continue modeling Catra. So I'll see you then.